forced everything, literally everything, to change. When you were told not to return after spring break as youngsters, when your second year you weren't allowed to see anybody other than your roommate. Hope the hell you picked right. When you had to take your classes over Zoom, I should say, sitting in your uniforms and mesh shorts. Oh, I figured that. And then coming back to the yard as first is not only to reform, but to remember what this place and what this time is supposed to be like. To return to the brigade, to what it was pre-COVID, and rebuild morale. You had the responsibility to right the ship, and all of you stepped up, I'm told. You came together. You learned the first and most important lesson of leadership, to always, always care for your people, to respect everyone's talent, to be inclusive, and to make sure the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps draw from the full strength and diversity of this nation. Everybody. Midshipmen, for the rest of your careers, you're going to face challenges unforeseen. You're going to have to adapt, be ready to lead your people through whatever lies ahead. To state the obvious, no generation of graduates gets to pick what world we're going to graduate into. It's already been formed for you, but you must change it. No officer knows the range of challenges they'll face when they commission. In class of 2022, you are graduating at an inflection point, not only in American history, but in world history, and I mean it. The challenges we face, the choices we make, are more consequential than ever. Things are changing so rapidly that the next 10 years will be the decisive decade of this century, because it's going to shape what our world looks like and the values that will guide it, not just for the immediate future, but for generations to come, and that is not hyperbole. Over the past few years, we've seen how interconnected the world is. The deadly pandemic has impacted not just our own schooling, but almost every aspect of our lives. Impacts of disruptions in global supply chain, causing significant inflation, accelerated climate crisis that's leading to rising seas and more severe weather patterns around the globe, and Putin's brutal war in Ukraine. Not only is he trying to take over Ukraine, he's literally trying to wipe out the culture and identity of the Ukrainian people. Attacking schools, nurseries, hospitals, museums, with no other purpose than to eliminate a culture. A direct assault on the fundamental tenets of rule-based international order. That's what you're graduating into. It's the world in which ensigns and second lieutenants, a world that more than ever requires strong, principled, engaged American leadership, where America leads not only by the example of its power, but the power of its example. Think of why most nations agree to support us. It's the example. It's the example we set. You'll learn to crew the most advanced ships in the world, train the most elite combat units, conduct undetected submarine missions, fly the most advanced fighter planes. But the most powerful tool that you'll wield is our unmatched network of global alliances and the strength of our partnerships, which since I got elected, I've been trying to reestablish in detail. Earlier this week, I returned from my first trip as president, been there before, as president though, to the Indo-Pacific, a region that will be vital to the future of our world. I met with the leaders of Japan, the heads of state of Japan, the Republic of Korea. I participated in a meeting of the Quad, which I restarted over China's objection, including Australia, Japan, India, and the United States, 4 leading democracies in the Indo-Pacific. And I launched, together with 13 other countries across the region, the new Indo-Pacific Economic Framework to help write the rules of the road for the 21st century. Before I departed Asia, before I left for Asia, I should say, I got a phone call from the Prime Minister of Sweden and the President of Finland. Could they come and see me in the Oval? They came to ask me whether I'd support them joining NATO. The actions taken by Putin were an attempt to use my phrase, to Findelize all of Europe, make it all neutral. Instead, he NATOized all of Europe. And all of this is illustrative of a foreign policy that was built around the power of working together with allies and partners to amplify our strength, to solve problems, to project our power beyond what we can do alone, and to preserve stability in an uncertain world. This is a work that will be asked of you. This is not hyperbole. I'm being deadly earnest with you because it will be. As sailors and Marines, submariners and SEALs, Navy aviators, surface warfare officers, we're going to look to you to ensure the security of the American people, to build connections and strengthen interoperability with our allies and partners around the world. You already started that work here at the Academy, where today we are graduating 12 international midshipmen representing 10 countries who will commission as officers in the militaries of their nations. Graduates, you will be the symbol and strength of your commitment to lead the world. You're going to stand sentinel, often shoulder to shoulder, with our allies and partners in critical regions of the world. Like the service women and men I just visited in the Republic of Korea, or the troops I've spent time with in Poland in March. We're making real our commitment to the security of our NATO allies. In the Indo-Pacific, a maritime theater will be the leading edge of our response to natural humanitarian disasters, showing people throughout the region the unmatched ability of the United States to be a force for good. You'll defend the international rules of the road, underwrite the future of the Indo-Pacific that is free and open, ensure freedom of navigation of the South China Sea and beyond, and make sure the sea lanes remain open and secure. These long-standing basic maritime principles are the bedrock of a global economy and global stability. And you're going to help knit together our allies in Europe with our allies in the Indo-Pacific. For the first time, if I can hesitate for a second here, did anybody think when I call for sanctions against Russia that in addition to NATO, that Australia, Japan, North Korea, some of the ASEAN countries would stand up and support those sanctions? The world is moving so rapidly. I need not tell you aviators. Within the next decade, you're going to be able to circumvent the world within the atmosphere in a little more than an hour. Things are changing. And Putin's brutal assault on Ukraine has spurred a truly global response, not just from Europe, but from Japan, Korea, Singapore, New Zealand, and more. Standing with us to impose sanctions on Russia. Australia, sending military aid. Germany, for the first time, significantly upping their budget. Germany. Fiji, assisting the FBI in seizing the yacht of an oligarch. We're seeing the world align, not in terms of geography, east and west, Pacific and Atlantic, but in terms of values. We're living through a global struggle, between autocracies and democracies. And I will note in my comment, I've met more with Xi Jinping than any other world leader has. When he called me to congratulate me on election night, he said to me, which he said many times before, he said, democracies cannot be sustained in the 21st century. Autocracies will run the world. Why? Things are changing so rapidly. Democracies require consensus, and it takes time. And you don't have the time. He's wrong. Each of you, as you go out into the world, will not only be a proud member of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, you'll be representatives and defenders of our democracy. Sounds corny, but literally our democracy. That's why you swear an oath not to me as your commander-in-chief or to any political leader, but to the Constitution. Our nation is placing in you great trust and great faith. Young man with me today, carrying the football. All the responsibility given to so many of you, so consequential, because you've chosen the honorable path that few before you have done. And you're going to look to uphold the honor of this institution and a generation of proud patriots who passed this way before you. Patriots like a dear friend of mine, John McCain. John and I went after each other hammer and tong on the Senate floor. We disagreed politically on things. But being here, I can't help think of John and how the Naval Academy meant so much to him. He chose these grounds for his final resting place. John was an American hero who withstood torture, years of being held as a prisoner of war. And when he came home, he decided to continue, he wanted to continue to serve. We traveled tens of thousands of miles together as he is staffing me as a senator.